the year of COVID-19 crisis will be remembered in the history of higher education as a year of radical innovations. At least we have started, it has sparked revolution in a way that we comprehend education. There are a lot of things that we have been thinking, that education has certain stereotypes, certain traditionalities, and I was indeed impressed by Professor Shaikat Moitra, the way he presented some of the technological aspect. Whether we accept it or not, technology is part of our life, and education cannot be an exception. This is a new phase where digital learning will be a new normal, and where accessibility and quality of higher education will be the key focus now onwards. The access to internet and technology, to my understanding, is going to be a fundamental right. It's only a matter of time, because everything when it gets dependent on technology, or say information technology, it has to be a fundamental right to education. It has to be a fundamental right. Likewise, the way we define literacy is going to change now. Tech literacy, or say IT literacy, is going to be the new definition of literacy. So unless you are IT literate, you will not be called literate in true sense. So those are certain fallouts, and these things were coming actually. It's not that just because of COVID has actually, this crisis had accelerated, made us feel that these things were there already, and we just failed to recognize them. Now, when I come to online blended learning, I think my fellow panelists have already spoken about. So I think a lot of things have been covered, but one thing that holistic education in terms of outcome-based education, if we start following, and it's not a new thing that we will be following. It's been there. I think it's 1989 when ABPED came up with this idea of outcome-based education, and NBA represents India in the Washington Accord. So it has a lot of solutions. I mean, the way if we follow the spirit of outcome-based education, it emphasizes more on the learning outcomes. That is more important. Modes are not important. Whether it is online, offline, or what you use, that is immaterial. If the paradigm shift happens from teaching to learning. So I think learning is what we actually need. So a lot of teachers, we have seen that they are actually focused, or say almost obsessed with the way of teaching. Probably they would have been successful in past, but that with the changes in society, they are so consistent and persistent. A diverse profile of higher education student, evolving need of employers, and the role of technology in instruction. These all have actually, in totality, changed the spectrum of, education as a whole. So, however, the idea, that there could be something as aggressively disruptive as COVID-19 crisis was unthinkable. I mean, that we must acknowledge. There are three things that we actually think when we impart education: content, pedagogy, and assessment. So if we elaborate it one by one, see the content part. Most of the universities that we have here are using, of course, some of the universities would have done some changes and cosmetic changes, some universities have. But we have failed to actually change the way the content should have changed in last 2 or 3 decades. Whatever we used to teach, or we used to have as a content in, say, probably late 90s, where we did not have access to personal computers. It just became personal computer in I think around late 90s on. And now, things have changed so dramatically. Things, I think Professor Shaikat Moitra mentioned so many things that we could not have imagined about. Last year, Amazon delivered 100% of the serviceable pin codes in India. One could not have imagined even. So I think we are thinking of this situation that the generation change, the effective generation change as we call it, is less than 5 years now, because of the advent in IT, information technology. And if we think that the fundamentals that we use, of course some of the fundamentals will continue, but if the content will continue to be valid and relevant over last 3 decades, and just a cosmetic change will do, I think we have mistaken. we need to actually seriously, not only the programs, but even some of the new things, new whole program courses needs to come up. Things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, things like, blockchain, cyber forensics, things like, cryptocurrency, a lot of things. And these are actually the need of the hour. People say in next, and researchers actually have indicated that in next 10 years, there are a lot of the skill set that we are going to require. I mean, the new generation will require. Half of them are even not known yet. So we are actually talking about something which is not known. And we are actually hesitant in making changes when something we are confronted with. So I think there is a whole lot of paradigm shift is required, I would say. A lot of things are changing, and we cannot just say that, we are immune. A lot of things around the world are changing, but education as a teachers, we are immune to this. It is just, a wish list, but not true. So I think the content is extremely important that needs to go, under change. The next is pedagogy. Now the pedagogy, of course, as a teachers and traditional teaching, actually we take pleasure when we say that, physical classroom, the smell of, that chalk and these days it's whiteboard actually. These things are not, things were already there. If you see that, digital, SWAYAM portal and Coursera and a lot of other things were already there. Now, since we are forced to actually implement some of these, now we panic. We always often see, hear that, we have already changed to, online education. It's partially true. Online education, I think Dr. Mitra also, pointed out, it has a lot of other things. It includes sequence of materials that include videos, readings, cases, quizzes, projects. It's actually, as you also, Professor Chaudhary, you pointed out that it's asynchronous learning. So if I am actually, what has happened is, for the same length of class, as if for the same time, as if a teacher would have imparted education in a normal physical classroom, we have just gone through different Zoom and other platform, and we are calling it online education. This is not online education. This is partly true. So I think this the element of asynchronous learning has to be there, right? So a lot of things, in pedagogical innovation has to be there. Even the assessment part, I would say, what are we assessing actually? Instead of pen and paper-based, I can give you an example. I'm also an engineer by qualification. Say, for example, if there is a course called instrumentation. Now, the idea is our students should actually know that how to, make an instrument. Ultimately, that's the idea. They need to know the principles and ultimately come up with an instrument. If a student, we test them through pen and paper based test and say probably, we fail them just because they could not memorize certain, principle and could not write it. Is it a right way, or probably, the same person if comes up, invents or comes up with an instrument which is working fine, I would say that, he should get actually full marks for that, because, that's what the learning outcome was anticipated. So I think the learning outcome anticipation is actually more important than actually, framing everything into a pen and paper based traditional way of, assessment. So I think everything that you, include, both, all three aspects, content, pedagogy, and assessment, I think there has to be a continuous improvement strategy in place. Continuous, quality improvement. Everything that we do. So I would say in a nutshell that what we require is, innovation. That's the key actually. You keep innovating in every aspect of, education that we impart in. The teachers, I think they need to actually unlearn some of the things that, probably they are obsessed with, or probably they would have thought it's so great. Probably they are no longer in use, or probably they have lost its relevance in with passage of time. So I think the continuous learning actually approach is more, it has to be inculcated, it has to be internalized by the teachers than the students. Of course, students are there, right? Students are doing that. So from a simple, source of information that, teacher used to be, the transformation has to be to source of inspiration, as Professor Lohia also pointed out very rightly. So I think, the transformation of teachers is important, and the role of institution is also important here. Role of institution to acknowledge, encourage our faculty member to, for continuous improvement is extremely important. We need to institutionalize the framework so that our faculty members are encouraged and they start learning, and in turn students are benefited. So I think some of these things are important. Resilience is another key point that I would like to mention here. One needs to be resilient as an institution or as an individual. If plan A fails, what is that we can do as a plan B? Because we saw that COVID came just it was almost like a disruption. It disturbed everything. But I think more important is how quickly, and I'm thanks to most of the institutions and thanks to our learning approach, majority of the institution could actually transform to some extent to this online mode of learning. So I think a lot of things is there, and one thing I would like to mention is no institution can actually impart education to any student which is going to last for 35 or 40 years of their active life. This is not going to happen because things are changing so fast. In 5 years, as I said, the effective generation gap is actually less than 5 years. So thinking that something that we are going to teach them is going to last them for 4 decades of their active life is actually something, a great wish we may have, but it is not a reality. So what we need to do is actually we need to inculcate this notion of lifelong learning in our students through different projects, through different ways, through research-based study. So I think the traditional way of teaching learning has to go a paradigm shift, and there the notion of this, the concept of outcome-based education, becomes bigger and more relevant, more important in these days. Thank you.